Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Scholar Scoop. I'm Steve Loflin. Every once in a while, I like to bring back a conversation from the archive that's really stuck with me. Thanks to our amazing guest, these messages are still incredibly relevant. So, whether you're hearing it for the first time or revisiting it with a fresh perspective, I'm really glad you're here. And if you're new to Scholar Scoop, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. Now, let's get some Scholar Scoop. Hey there, I'm Steve Loflin, and I want to thank you for tuning in for some Scholar Scoop. And what I'm especially excited about today is that my good friend Karin Wiedemann has joined me to talk about some of her experiences with college, career, and life. And if there's anybody in the world who knows a lot about college, career, and life, is Karin Wiedemann. So thank you so much, Karin, for jumping on here and having a conversation about all these great things.
Steve, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And thank you for that very high bar you've set for our listeners, for me. And I hope to be able to provide as much information as I can about colleges, careers, and life. So thanks for the invitation.
No problem. It's always about high bars with you, though, right?
That's right. High bars or just bars.
Just bars. Sometimes bars are the best way to get through college, career, and life. But we won't go down that path
Exactly.
today. We're gonna
Exactly.
talk about some things a little more substantial, I think. Anyway,
That's for sure.
so first of all, maybe so I know you went to Penn State,
Yes.
and did you love it?
I absolutely loved it. I have a sister who's 2 years older, and she went there, and when I was in high school, I visited her, and I knew right away that that was the only school that I wanted to go to. I applied to a few others, got in, but then when I got the acceptance letter from Penn State, I started packing my bags, Steve. I was so excited.
Well, and probably because you're from New Jersey, am I correct?
Well, that's funny you act surprised by that information because when we first started working together on Semester at Sea, I told you that I was from the New York area, and you called me out on it when you later found out that I was from Bergen County, New Jersey. So, yeah, it's funny that I ended up at Penn State when I grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah, I always think about that because it was more than one time that you were introducing yourself to people as being from the New York area. And I finally just had to dig right into that. It's like, well, what does that actually mean, the New York area? And you're like, New Jersey, okay? And I don't think there's anything wrong with New Jersey, Karen, just to put that out there.
No, you didn't, but you didn't grow up there when Saturday Night Live had the skits about you from Jersey, I'm from Jersey, but I've forgiven you for doing that.
And what exit are you off of or
I
something
don't
was also
even,
a part
yes,
of
that was it. And
I
to
do
this
remember that.
day, I don't remember what exit the Garden State Parkway we lived off of, but anyway, my dog Luna is protesting in the background. She's saying, Steve, drop the Jersey thing.
Drop the
And
Jersey
somebody
thing and
walk
move
me.
on.
Exactly.
So now that we have it very clear that you're from New Jersey, I think
Yes.
it's time to think a little bit. So you were at Penn State, and while you're at Penn State, I'm
Mhm.
guessing that you must have gotten involved with some things there that got you interested in helping people with their college experience and their life experience. Like, what was
A
your college experience like?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, my freshman year, I was really impacted positively by the orientation program and
Mhm.
the orientation leaders, undergrads living in the dorms, as we called them back in the dinosaur era.
Residence
Um
halls now.
Exactly. But I remember being so impacted by that because as somebody who was super excited to be at Penn State, I had a sister who was an RA already, so I knew about that whole program. But I, as an introvert, at a big school, I was excited that there were these opportunities for me to get involved and meet other people. It was almost like somebody sort of pushing me along into these things, but in a nice way, and I needed that. So as an incoming freshman, I also started not because of academic prowess, but just because
Mhm.
I was in a program that started in June. I went right from I hadn't even graduated high school and I started college again not because I'm Doogie Howser, a reference to a TV show in the 80s or 70s, but because the program I had gotten into started that summer. And so it was a unique time for me to figure out, okay, there's less students here, but there's this orientation program. Let me get involved now, and then I'll have a chance to get involved again in the fall with orientation for
Hmm.
other freshmen. And it really was, I hesitate to use the term hand-holding or somebody pushing me, but in a way it really was, and that's what I needed to get involved, and from that point on, it just took off for what I got involved with in college.
I love that story. And I think it's probably now you were doing something that was way ahead of your time, which is not that unusual for you. But I think now more and more students are looking for ways to get college credits before they actually get to
Mm,
college. And maybe not to going to Penn State early or initially, but um, figuring out a way to do a dual degree. So go to community college
mm,
when you're in high school, get an associate's degree along with your high school diploma, and then you hit the ground running in college sometimes as a junior. And it can really cut off a lot of the time that you have to spend getting to your 4 year degree. And so I think it's great if people get a head start. And I think your example
yes.
is a really good one. It kind of set you up to be even more successful once you were into your freshman year and kind of going down that path. So I think that's something that more and more students, particularly high school students, could really think about more
Mhm.
clearly and then
Mm,
get to college and do what you did and get involved and find the people that are going to help you be successful, which is something that I think maybe is underrated from the student perspective. There's so many services on campus. And I know just based on what you did as you went through college, you decided to actually make your kind of career path aligned with the college student experience. So, what did
mhm.
that mean for you, and how did you actually turn that into reality?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I was so impacted by, becoming an orientation leader my sophomore year, and then applying to very intentionally. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to let my dog out, so I'll just keep talking actually while I do this. So, becoming an RA, in college was my next goal. So it was freshman year, influenced by the orientation program, orientation leaders. Sophomore year, applying to be an orientation leader, and then very intentionally at Penn State at that time, and maybe still to this day, there are so many different steps that you have to take in order to become placed as an RA in the residence halls. It's not just applying, it's interviewing. It's not just interviewing, it's getting into a 3 credit course. It's taking the course, it's doing well in the course, it's then being recommended. And even if you completed that whole process and got a good grade in the class and lots of positive feedback, there still might be a reason why you wouldn't be placed in the residence hall. So it was this very sort of competitive program in many ways. Fortunately, I did well enough and got in, and then I became an RA. Was an
Mhm.
RA for 2 years. Absolutely loved it. I ended up I was asked to co-teach this course that RAs had to take. When I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. There's lots of other stories off of that, but I worked as a counselor in a crisis center. Did that for 2 years, but realized I didn't want to be on the front lines doing that much intense, kind of counseling.
Mhm.
A hall director position came up in the same area of campus where I'd been an RA. I applied and I got the job. And then I ended up working for a number of years as a hall director. Then I also went to grad school while I was working full time, and lots of other paths that I went down related to that, that kind of led me into leadership and coaching students and advising students and teaching students, and then going into different sectors and different areas doing that. But it truly, to be honest with you, Steve, when I've interviewed for positions in the past, I have always talked about how stepping into that leadership position as an orientation leader, but more specifically as an RA,
Mhm.
completely changed my life and taught me skills that I have used in every single job sense.
I think that's 100% a true story of something that really needs to be embraced because you don't really know like what is going to happen around the corner or not. What's not going to happen if you don't accept an opportunity. But those kinds of things that you do outside of the classroom can sometimes teach you a lot about how to be more successful once you get into your career and you bring those skills to the table in ways that go far beyond maybe what you learned from the textbook. And so I think that story is something that a lot of people could really benefit from thinking about. And when you look at campuses now, there's so many opportunities to get involved and to become a leader and to take on leadership responsibilities. And I think the orientation leaders and the resident assistants and even participating counseling centers now have a lot of peer counseling opportunities. You get so much training, like you said, with those roles. And those are things that are truly valued by employers when they're starting
Hmm.
to interview you and to recruit you. And not just from the way that you can talk about it in your interviews, but what you bring in to that experience. And I know, I think I've heard you say before that some of the things that you learn being an RA, just being doing icebreakers or something, you take that to the corporate world and they look at you like you're a godsend, like, oh my gosh, where did you learn how to do this? And it does come from those outside of the classroom experiences that you have in college. So I think that's really an important lesson. Obviously, that you learned along the way, but
Hmm.
I think other people maybe haven't thought about it. It's like, I'm just going to go to college, I'm going to go to class, and I'm going to go to home or back to my room, or I'm going to do intramurals, all of which is great. But looking for those
Hmm.
opportunities for leadership is really, really important. Um, so I think along those lines, I met you, and it's hard to believe that in 2025, it'll be 30 years ago when we showed up in Vancouver to board a ship to go around the world together. And,
Hmm.
that was something that I was looking forward to be able to work with college students on that program to have an international experience.
Hmm.
When you think back to semester at sea and that time, what's one of the things that stands out for you about the international going abroad experience?
Mm. Great, great question. There's so many things. I'm
You
trying
could
to sort
start
of
with handing out footballs or handing out
oh,
volleyballs
that
and
part. Yeah. So when I was interviewing for the position, every hall director on the ship, which was the position that just so our audience knows, so that you and I both had, we had a side job in addition to having a floor of students, and I wanted the side job of leadership development. But I had so many things on my resume pointing out that I was very athletic and very active. I maybe highlighted too many things because the our boss put me in charge of sports and recreation. So while Steve was welcoming ambassadors to the ship, I was counting to see if we had all the pieces for the chessboard. So when we had a staff meeting and everyone would go around and Tom would say like, "Well, we have another newscast for tomorrow," and Steve's like, "Well, we have Peter Arnett, and he's going to be speaking to the ambassador when the ship docks." And I would be like, we have run out of volleyball, so we need to get some new ones when we get to Beijing. And I
it
was
was
like,
important though. That was important, Karen. You needed volleyballs for students to be happy on the ship. So
that's right, stress management. So beyond the horribly embarrassing pieces that I contributed to our staff meetings, I do have to say, a couple things come to mind. Three things. One is coming to a country by water versus by an airport.
mhm.
Nowadays, every airport, well, not every airport, I'm exaggerating, but they all tend to look the same, feel the same. To see a horizon as a speck, and then you get closer and closer, and then there's just so much more effort. And I remember going up, I'm blanking on the name of the river, as we were going into Beijing, and it was at night, and there's fog, and there's just these little lights, and then
Mm,
there'd be these little like fishermen on these tiny slivers that look like a size of a windsurfer, next to our big ship with a few hundred people on it.
mhm.
So how we arrived to a country was amazing. The as you often did, I would put the backpack on when we got to a country, and I'd have my books read, I'd have them in my bag, and I would just go off and explore. Was absolutely fascinating, and I preferred that to some of the more guided trips that were planned that were a little too expensive for me as a recent grad student. But I that adventure of seeing so many different places that I had, at that point in my life, never even seen before. I'd done some traveling, but seeing so many different countries and meeting so many different people, it was so eye-opening, and made me feel just like I wanted to do more traveling. And I
Mhm.
think there was another question that you had. The third one was, oh yeah, I had just finished grad school, got a degree in teaching English as a second language, knew all along I never wanted to do that. I wanted to teach communication skills, cross-cultural communication skills. Seeing certain countries where the pay was very good, but I realized as a woman from America, where I had so many rights and so much freedom, I did not wanna teach English as a second language in a country where I didn't feel that I could go running every day after work or
Mm,
do this, so I got some really important information about next steps for what I wanted to do, and it was, if I do wanna live in another country, it was much more narrow, the list, than what
mhm.
I'd had in front of me, before we got on the ship and saw 11 different countries.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about that program, Semester at Sea. And I do think international study is an incredible experience for students. And really, if you can find a way to be international during your college years, I think it's always great for you and the educational experience. I think the Semester at Sea program, or maybe programs similar to that,
Mhm.
the best thing I thought about that was it was kind of like the Whitman sampler of the world, right? Like you
Yes.
mentioned, we went to 11 countries, and you were there long enough. Obviously, you can't get immersed, so it wasn't an immersion
Mhm.
experience, but you can be there long enough to really understand a little more about the culture, and you can meet the people. And like the conclusions you came to, some of it was like, I would love to go back there and spend more time. And in some cases, it's like, I'm so happy I got to go there, but I'm not sure I would ever want to go back. But all of it collectively is a really positive thing. And I think, taking the time to do that. I mean, we had the privilege of working with the students on board, and they were amazing, students from
Yes.
all over the country and even in some
Yes.
cases around the world. And so you also have that unique experience where you get to go to these countries, but you get to be with so many students from so many different schools and backgrounds. And so I just really love that. And I learned a lot from it. And I'm still in touch. I don't know about you. Are you still in touch with
Mhm.
people the
Mhm.
students that we worked with on board?
Let me think. More of the staff than the students, yeah.
I just think that's part of it too. When you think about the relationships that you build, it comes through like the friends that you make in college. I've heard it said over and over again that you typically meet the people that will be your best friends and your most ongoing friends in college the first 6 weeks that you're on campus, if you're having a
Mm.
campus experience. And along with that, I think you build those friendships and those relationships through common experiences, right? So get
Yes.
involved with things, become the RA, the orientation leader, go on the
Mm.
international trip or go abroad on something like Semester C. And you never know where those relationships and friendships are going to take you as you kind of make your way through your life journey. And so
Yes.
I just know, knowing that you and I have been connected now because of that experience for 30 years is one of the things that you can say, well, that's incredible. And
Yes.
it made that whole experience, that much more worthwhile, knowing that you can meet lifetime, longtime friends that way. So I do think when you look at the idea of kind of, what's college like? What do you want your career to be like? How do you want to manage your life? They're interconnected, even for people who choose not to go to college.
Mhm.
Everything that someone chooses to do as a part of their life experience, right? So they're
Yes.
meeting people, they're engaging with people. And so I do think like, doing all of these things come from taking the initiative to do
Mm.
these things, right? And to
Mhm.
get involved. I remember applying for Semester at Sea and all the people that were like, why would you wanna do that? Or you could are you sure you would wanna go away and be on a ship with a bunch of students?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I do. I think that'll be really
Mhm.
incredible, and I'm so glad that I applied and had the experience." And
Yes.
like you mentioned, we're still connected with a lot of our colleagues from that program, and I think
Mhm.
that's been really amazing to kinda watch how everybody's career over the past 30 years has flourished in all kinds of ways, in different ways, but probably not terribly far away from the student experience in one way or another. And so I think that that's also super, super positive. Um,
I agree 100%.
I also think with when I look at the way that you've framed up your career and your experience, one of the things that I really admire is the way that you have become such a great coach, and the way that you're able to coach people toward, understanding what their goals are and understanding how
Mm.
to craft the future that they're hoping for. And what's interesting to me, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, is you seem to be able to do that in so many different stages of people's lives. I
Mm.
know you coach college students and helping them think about their career journey and what they want to do. I know that you help people that are transitioning careers and trying to
Mhm.
figure out, what do I really want to do, because I don't necessarily like what I'm doing right now. And then on top
Mhm.
of that, people transitioning out of a career into retirement. And so
Yes.
I know, just having conversations with you over the years, you seem to be able to navigate all of those. And is there a common thread in terms of what you give advice to those people, whether you're in college or in a career, or you're ready to move along from your career? How do you get people thinking about making those hard decisions? Is there a common theme in
Mm.
that?
Yeah, no, how do I help people? That is so yeah, there are some common themes, and that's what I love about the fact that there are common themes, thank you for bringing that up, is what allows me to work with so many different types of people from so many different sectors, from so many different areas, from so many different countries, is because at the root of it is, self-awareness, right? I used to say when I worked at the Fletcher School and students would come in and I would only have 30 minutes with them, I would say, "All right, please tell me, you know, where are you now? What led you here? Okay, so what do you have going on now? What led you to coming to Fletcher? What what did you do before? And where do you think you might want to go next?" So it was just to get and I would say no more than 5 minutes, and this is not you're not being graded on your elevator pitch. It's not an elevator pitch. I just need to
Mm,
know who you are now, where have you been, where do you think you want to go next? And that's the case for somebody who is ready to retire, but they don't know what they want to do or not do, or what they think that they want their life to be like, or who they
mm,
want to be themselves in this next chapter. And, getting people to reflect on all of these things is really important because it gets them um, it makes them more knowledgeable about what they want and what they don't want. I just had a conversation with a fellow coach an hour ago, and we were talking about how when I first started coaching, I would have mid-career professionals in DC saying to me, "Oh, you were referred to me by a previous client who's a friend, and
mm,
I just want to make a change, and I'm just so frustrated, but I don't know what I want to do next." And I would say, "That's okay. It's okay to not know. Let's dig deeper." And that's where sometimes working with clients to come up with what is it that you are pretty clear you don't want to do because
mhm,
you've done it already or you haven't done it, but you're pretty clear that that's not what you want in terms of a job or a life or a location, geographic location. People have so much more, they have so many more answers than they think,
mhm,
and helping them to dig deeper is something that I've done across the board with all kinds of clients. And the one tool there's many tools in my toolbox, but the one that I've consistently used with clients over the decades is a life map.
mhm,
And it's a number of questions on the left-hand side, like places you've lived, people who've influenced you, challenging moments in your life, things you've learned, you know, things you've done and couple other questions. And then it's like on a big piece of paper, or people do it electronically, or they do it with like Pinterest or however like they want to express that. Um, the process of reflecting back, it's the one time that we do it
Hmm.
with clients, or that I do it with clients. It's the one time. From that point on, it's who you are now and where do you want to go. But digging through that and looking at who influenced you, what classes did you like, it's amazing. It's like seeing a movie of your life and then getting so much information on that, because and having me ask them questions
Hmm.
helps them to get to know themselves better. And as you know too, when you work with a coach, the coach can ask you these questions that really get you thinking,
Hmm.
and they reflect back things that they've heard you say or not say. And I believe that that's why coaching is so powerful, because we very rarely have people in our life who do that for us. Neutral thinkers who can really listen to us and use active listening skills and then formulate a very powerful question.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how is it that some people are eager to like seek out a coach and to get that
Mm.
help, and then other people are reluctant? Like, do you ever sort of have a formula for the person who will go find the coach or the ones that won't? Because you and I both, I'm sure, have met people and we're like, oh, I think you
Yeah.
could really benefit from a coach. But it's not something that maybe they think of immediately when they're thinking about like what to do to solve their conundrum or what they're trying to work through.
Mm.
What's your perspective on the type of people that will take a coach or not take a coach, and what does it take to walk into that coaching relationship to be successful?
Yeah, that's a great, great question. It's similar to when I used to teach yoga, and I would have people say, "Oh, I want to bring my partner, or my best friend, or my mom. I think they would really benefit." I'm like, if you feel like you're dragging them kicking and screaming, they're not going to come. But if they continue to see how much it's benefiting you, they may try it,
Hmm.
and it may be for them, it may not. I believe, and it's kind of like my ideal client, right? And I sometimes feel like I'm a magnet for those people, are the people who are willing to do the work.
Hmm.
So somebody who's willing to be vulnerable, to be uncomfortable, um, and willing to do the work is not actual like, oh, I have to sit down now and do this homework. No, it's at the end of a session, I'll just say, okay, so we've talked about a number of different things, and here's a couple different tools, but it's mental exercises. I mean, there's writing exercises, this and that, but it's these mental exercises. Noticing how often you use the word should in
Hmm.
conversation, noticing
Yeah.
how often you think it, and not writing it down, not keeping tabs, but just noticing, so that when you're next in the next coaching session, you can talk about what did you learn from that? What did you
Hmm.
observe? So it's somebody who's willing to do that kind of work, and a person who is as I say to all my clients, at about month 5 or 6, you're gonna be frustrated, because 'cause you're gonna be like, "I wanna have all the answers for what I'm supposed to do next, and I don't have them yet." So I will manage people's expectations from the start. So someone who's willing to keep pushing through that piece, that
Hmm.
part, is for me the person who's ready for coaching and who's gonna get the most out of it. Now then there's the other folks who may be more resistant, and I like a challenge, so I like to be able to explain to people, as you know, I love challenges, sometimes too often, too much. Is this what is it not, right? It's
Hmm.
not therapy. I'm not analyzing you. We're not digging into the past. We're only reflecting on the past for this one exercise. And you're at the steering wheel. I'm in the passenger seat. And it was maybe 10 years ago that I came up with, it's going to be in my new website. It's what I say when people say, "What do you do?" And I say, "I'm a co-pilot. I'm a navigator. I help people figure out where they want to go next and how to get there." So I let people know that they're in the driver's seat, and that I will be interrupting them and I will be asking questions, but they decide how they want to spend that time in a coaching session. What do they want to bring to the table? Halfway through, they may want to say, "You know what? There's something else that's really pressing that I just realized that I want to work on." And that I think helps people feel like there's more control for them
Hmm.
in a situation where they may perceive it as being analyzed. I'm not analyzing them. I'm listening to what they're saying and not saying and formulating questions based on that.
Well, I think like there's so many people that can benefit from coaching, obviously. And I know on campuses for people who are in college or going back to college, it's always a great idea to look for those resources that are there and
Mm,
they're accessible. You just need to go in and take advantage of them.
yes.
For people that are into a career or into a job,
Mm.
how do you find a coach? I know you mentioned you get referrals. That's because you're great at what you do. But if someone's like, I've never even heard anybody talk about having a coach, like where do you start to find somebody that might be able to help you with some of these like, career challenges or thinking about what you want to do with your future?
No, that's a great question. Couple of different ways. You can go to the International Coaching Federation, and they have all certified coaches listed by geographic area. You can, of course, search by Google. Let's say if you want a specific someone who's familiar with your field, you can go to your alma mater.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or maybe reminded you of something you needed to hear right now. If this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. Those connections really matter. As always, thanks for being a part of this community. I'll see you back here for more Scholar Scoop real soon.